we're now at war. And things are very much different when a company or a country or even an individual is at war versus at peacetime. Human behavior and consumption patterns, they have changed. Yesterday, those were the good old days. Today is a new paradigm. Today is a new world. I really think that we're going to view things through a pre-COVID-19 lens and a post-COVID-19 lens. For this company, today is the day that we make that distinction. Yesterday was pre, today is post. So anyone that pretends like they have an answer or that they understand exactly what's going on and they know exactly what's going to happen in the future, that person is either ignorant or lying.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and let's talk about the unusual times, the high volatility that we're currently going through. And unfortunately, during these unusual times, people are naturally going to be fearful. They're going to naturally want to turn inward. They're going to naturally start focusing only on themselves. And a lot of people naturally, they move towards opaqueness. They no longer want to be open and transparent. They no longer want to be sharing. And I really want to try and change that in whatever little aspect I can. So today is March 24th. On March 23rd, I had probably one of the most difficult conversations I've ever had. Hopefully it turns out to be one of the most difficult I'll ever have. But I had to have a conversation with my team. You know, we're facing quarantine. Essentially, a lot of industries and services are being shut down because of quarantine and stay at home and isolate and things of that nature. And so I had to have that conversation with my team. It's something that I know a lot of entrepreneurs and CEOs are struggling with. So this video isn't going to be for everyone, but this video is for anyone that's kind of going through a hard time and just wants to hear how another entrepreneur, another CEO handled it. So this is a long video. It's pretty much unedited. We literally just recorded myself having the Zoom talk with the team, and I just tried to lay everything out. We've always tried to be a different organization. We're truly driven by our core value, which is impact. And part of being impact to us means being transparent and trying to lead, trying to change things by our leadership. And so I'm hoping by being vulnerable and sharing this video with you guys, that I can maybe help contribute in whatever way I can. So if you guys enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate a positive comment, if not for me, even just for my employees, which are going to see this video, as well as, don't be afraid to share it. But even more so, a lot of people are going through what I talk about in this video, which is WIFIO, which that's a startup term, which stands for we're fucked, it's over. Now, I'm not in that bad of a position, but I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are out there that do currently feel this way. So I've already extended this offer once, but I want to do it again. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, if you're struggling right now, absolutely feel free to reach out to me. Just use the subject line, WFIO. Send me a DM on any social media platform. You can probably find an email address in one of the video descriptions down below. But I really do want you to reach out, because this too will pass. Regardless of what happens to your business, make sure that you put everything into perspective and context. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Enough fluff, let's just dive into it. And thank you guys for watching.
All right. So we're going to pretty much just dive right into it. So if everyone can put themselves on mute, that would be great. And then only unmute yourself if you want everyone to hear what you have to say. This team meeting is going to be a bit different than most team meetings. One, we're going to skip our game of threads. Possibly the first time we've ever skipped threads, but I'm a little scared about how that'd turn out via Zoom. And then beyond that, I'm just going to dive right into a bit of a monologue here, guys. So let's do this. So first of all, I just want to say I really appreciate and respect everyone that's on this call. I'm really proud of what we've done together as a team, and I'm very excited for where we can head in the future. That being said, because I do, everyone's on mute, right? Because I do care and respect all of you, I'm not going to do what most managers would do in this situation, and that's, do something like a shit sandwich where they try and put a nicety, then the real meat and potatoes, and then another nicety on the end of it. So COVID-19, this has changed things. This is unprecedented in our times, in my humble opinion. And I think in this time, it's important for us to really focus on what matters. And what matters is the data, not the drama. So there's a lot of drama going on. There's a lot of misinformation going on. There's a lot of unusual things going on. So just talking specifically about the data, some data points that I just want to share with everyone for context, because I know everyone on this call has varying views and thoughts and probably even facts or information in regards to COVID-19 or the coronavirus. So like, here's where things are at. This week on Thursday, which I believe will be the 26th, the US will post historically unprecedented unemployment numbers. So we're probably looking at something 3 times as worse as the peak in 2009. So this, our team, very young. This is shit that you guys have never seen before. So just for context, it's important we understand that. Again, looking at the fatality rates and how quickly this spreads, it seems quite plausible to me based upon the information available to us today at this time, being March 23rd, that we could be looking at 1 to 4% of the population as a fatality statistic, right? We could be looking at 1 to 4% of people dying across the world, not just even in Canada. LA has announced, the city of LA has announced it's essentially shut down or doing a stay-at-home policy until April 19th. And then, you know, some of us I know are big Grant Cardone fans or consume a lot of his content. If you guys were watching on Friday, he did a live stream, and it's very obvious that things aren't going well for Grant Cardone either. He's laid off on Friday. He effectively laid off 44% of his workforce with no notice and literally said, I'm not even going to pay you what I owe you. Good luck trying to sue me. You can contact my lawyers here. As well, on that same live stream, you know, he hinted at he's going to need $1 billion bailout from the government. To me, you could literally hear the fear in his voice. Those are just some facts. These definitely are unprecedented changes that none of us have a manual that we can refer to in order to understand what's happening. And again, what direction everything evolves into and what direction everything goes is still yet to be seen. So anyone that pretends like they have an answer or that they understand exactly what's going on and they know exactly what's going to happen in the future, that person is either ignorant or lying. There's no other options in my opinion. They're either ignorant of what's going on and that's how they can self-delude themselves into thinking they know what's going to happen next, or they're literally lying to themselves and they're presenting a front in order to just, you know, try and hold things together. So again, there's a lot of additional facts out there. There's a lot of information out there. I don't want to get really nitty gritty into the details on this, but it's important for us to have some context before we even like talk about our business or what's going on here. So talking about our business and just business in general, quarantine is grinding business to a halt. There's just no other way about it. We're seeing it have massive impacts on all kinds of different sectors in the economy, and I expect this will continue. In fact, especially based upon the lead that LA and New York are taking, I suspect that we're going to see some sort of general quarantine or some sort of at least partial quarantine until at least May 1st. So realistically, I think we're looking at a general shutdown for up to 4 to 5 weeks from this point in time. Again, I know probably a lot of your peers, maybe some of your friends or family, believe that this is only going to be 1 more week or 2 more weeks. I personally believe, based upon the data I've reviewed, that those individuals are being naive, that they're lying to themselves, or they're simply just misinformed. So quarantine is something that's going to be here to stay. And in fact, if I had to guess what's going to happen, I'm going to guess that it's going to become even more difficult for us to transact in real estate. And that's something for all of us to understand and be aware. If the lawyer offices or the land registry office closes, that literally means real estate becomes impossible to do. Our entire business is built upon real estate, and even more so, even our social media business, our entertainment business, is still directed towards those real estate investors. So if they literally cannot operate in their business, even if we were profitable just from a media side of things, we would still see a hit simply because our audience isn't going to be interested in real estate right now if they can't do real estate investing. So, you know, every business is going to be impacted by this, but the degree to which each business is impacted is going to vary. something that a lot of the people that are real estate oriented or have been deep in this ecosystem that we've created for an extended period of time, you know, there's people that we like that are going to go bankrupt. There's people that we like that are going to lose things. There's people that we like that are going to lose their job or have to let their employees go. I don't know who that is. And even if I did, I wouldn't want to point fingers at who the individuals I suspect are likely to have the greatest struggle during these unusual circumstances, but people will go bankrupt. People are going to lose their businesses. People will lose their homes. The degree to which this happens is still completely yet to be seen. So I don't have a crystal ball. No one has a crystal ball. Anyone that claims they do is just a liar, in my opinion. But, you know, like, I think even a lot of the gurus that a lot of us look up to or the motivational speakers, the tide is going out right now. As they like to say, the proverbial tide is going out, and we're going to see who's naked, right? Like who's not wearing a swimsuit once the tide is out. It could be some of the people that have been on my YouTube channel for all we know. We'll just have to roll with the punches as they come. Everyone alive today is going to have a 2020 story. So, like, this is one of those moments in time that very rarely do we realize it as the moment's occurring, where you're like, this is history unfolding in front of me. This is, like, I guess I don't want to get too metaphoric with it. So, this is history being made, guys. Like, you can compare this to whatever previous incident you hold as a high watermark or as, like, a wow, that was, in that point in time, the world changed forever. Just understand that, wow, at this point in time, the world is changing forever. And everyone alive is going to have a 2020 story. A lot of their 2020 stories is going to be about how they lost their job, they lost their business, they lost their home, they lost confidence in the system. And again, it's going to be what we choose to do from that story that's going to determine everything. So is this the story where it was the catalyst where you took control and you became stronger and bigger than you've ever been before? Or did you let this beat you down? Did you let this defeat you? Were you one of the people that just sat there at home refreshing the death counter every 3 seconds just to see more data? At that point in time, that data is actually becoming drama. So again, it's important that we understand what is noise and what is signal, and that we only focus on what's signal in regards to the information we're consuming. So yesterday, and this is more than just for our business, this is for just like the way the world is, in my opinion, at this point in time. Yesterday, those were the good old days. Those were the fat years. Those are the years that you're going to tell people about, like, oh, I remember the heady days of social media back in the late teens of the 21st century. That's just what it is. Yesterday, those were the good old days. Today is a new paradigm. Today is a new world. And, you know, as society and just governments and companies and everyone adapts to what's going on, I really think that we're going to view things through a pre-COVID-19 lens and a post-COVID-19 lens. For this company, today is the day that we make that distinction. Yesterday was pre, today is post. And for us now, it's really critical for us to decide how we choose to write the narrative of what happens to this company in a post-COVID-19 environment. The way I would put forth to all you guys is this, honestly, to me, difference between peacetime and wartime. We're now at war, and things are very much different when a company or a country or even an individual is at war versus a peacetime. And like, our team is really young. So like, no one on this call has lived through a real wartime. And that's literally me, even including Jeff, who's been to war and fought a war. So like, you guys are too young to have even, most of you experienced 2007 to 2009. I did experience it, and in Canada, it was a battle. It was by no means a war. So I can remember, I forget whether it was 2007 or 2008, but I was working as an auditor at that time in Mitchell, Ontario for BDO Dunwoody, and I can remember out of the blue, I had a request for a meeting with my main partner. And I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. But I was like, oh, they're probably going to reshuffle me because I know some stuff's going on with the economy, ... I walk into her office, and immediately I recognize the head R of our HR department sitting with her. And like, from that moment on, I'm not even sure I really heard any of the conversation that went on. It was just like, oh, this is what's happening. And, you know, at that point in time, we had lost our biggest audit client. It wasn't a value judgment of myself or my performance in that regard. It was literally just we had gone from a peacetime to a battle. We hadn't gone to full war. This was just an incident, just a battle. But even losing that primary customer, that primary client, was enough. And they were like, hey, Matt, we hate to lose you, but here's 5 options available to you. You can transfer to these 5 different offices, and they'll take you on and da da da. That to me, that's one of the biggest, closest experiences I've had to wartime. The other time would be with the pharmaceutical company when we got acquired and Hillary Clinton put out a tweet and we lost like half our market cap over a course of a couple weeks. But again, those were both battles. Those were not wartime. So it's really important that you guys all understand, regardless of where things were in the past, today is the first day of war for you, for the team, for the company, for the country, for the world. And some of them aren't going to realize that we're at war for a while. That's just the reality of how some people adapt to trouble and stressful times. But I think it's really important that everyone on this call, because everyone on this call is important to me, understands that there's been a fundamental shift in everything. Everything, in my opinion. And we're going to see such dramatic changes between, the consumption and behavior patterns of humans that I can't even begin to fathom or predict how the long-lasting consequences of this are going to be. But one thing that we need to understand is there's still a giant spectrum of outcomes available. And so that giant spectrum can go from anything as, in my opinion, unlikely but possible is 8, 12 weeks from now, things could almost be back to normal, to things were never, literally, ever the same again. And right now, a lot of that comes down to, in my opinion, a game of bluff, a game of chicken right now between the US government and the rest of the world. They're in the process right now of minting a couple $1 trillion coins that they're hoping that will bail things out. And literally the way I like to view this, and I said this to the wholesalers earlier today on our call, is this is like one of those cartoons where the coyote literally runs off a cliff, and he's still running in the air and doesn't realize there's no ground below him. And right now, what determines whether he falls or makes it to the other side is going to be the confidence that everyone has in the US government. Is the entire world willing to pretend that things are all right and they'll go back to normal? If the entire world can self-delude, there's a chance we can post this inevitability and kick it down the road the same way we did in 2007 to 2009. We never actually fixed all the systematic errors that are going on in the economy and the governments in general, and the deficits and the budgets and things of that nature. In fact, we just compounded them. And right now, that's honestly, in my opinion, one of our best hopes is that we can somehow kick the can further down the road, regroup, consolidate, and be ready for it at that time. But it's really important we understand that human behavior and consumption patterns, they have changed. And so just because no one here has ever been at war, in my opinion, in regards to business, I want to make a couple distinctions for everyone so that you understand the difference between a company during peacetime and a company during wartime. So a company during peacetime, they have a large advantage. They've got competitive advantages, they make money, they're in a growing market, feelings, HR departments, things like that all matter. In peacetime, they're focused on 5-year plans. In wartime, we are literally facing on a daily basis the imminent existential threat of our entire existence as a company. And so what that means is that more so than ever before, results are what matter. Results are what drive tomorrow. Results is what gives us one more life for tomorrow. Results is what gives us one more day. Results is what buys us another week. And so results are going to become more critical to our business than ever before. So that being said, I now, Matt McKeever, need to transform from a peacetime CEO to a wartime CEO. And there is a dramatic shift in what that means. And there's going to be a dramatic shift in even how we interact as a team. So during peacetime, culture matters, and you can get fancy about culture, and you can really think about it, and you can spend days or weeks at a company retreat trying to plan out and mold your company culture to be perfect. In times of war, the war defines the culture. So whatever allows us to survive becomes our culture as a team. In times of peace, you can focus on big picture, 5-year plans, 10-year plans, and like how we're going to change the world. In times of war, no detail is too small. No detail is too small. Letting things slip through the cracks becomes completely unacceptable. Having paperwork that doesn't get done the moment it could get done becomes unacceptable. Where during times of peace, we could afford that. Hell, during times of peace, we could accidentally forget that we had a walkthrough at a property and then just rebook it the next day. During times of war, that could literally mean the difference between staying in business for another week or shutting down completely and never being in business again. Then, and this pains me because this is one of my favorite things about our organization, and I hope to keep a molecule of it at least as part of our core DNA. But in times of peace, you can be nurturing. You can really foster relationships, and you can coddle your employees. In time of war, it's facts, and those facts are blunt. So like, if you think that myself or Sam are unemotional today, just wait until you see us in times of war. Like, it really does become all about just numbers, facts, details. Those are what drive wartime CEOs. Those are what drive wartime companies. And those are what allow them to see their way through the other side. Now, that being said, this wartime circumstance that we find ourselves in, this wasn't even of our own doing. And I can appreciate and understand the frustration that some of you may have in that regards. Up until this month, up until the 15th of March, we were on pace to be the largest wholesaling company in Canada. We were the best. We literally were the fucking best. It doesn't matter anymore, guys, unfortunately. It's a new paradigm. It's a new environment. Behavior patterns are changing. The economy's changing. And so we need to adapt to that. Focusing on the old days, on the old times, on the what could have been, the what ifs, no longer matter. There's today, tomorrow, and hopefully a future. But that's literally it in regards to this. So it's really important that you guys understand the distinction between peacetime and wartime. And so this wartime was forced upon us. This is a macroeconomic event so far beyond our control and so far outside of our ability to predict that, to me, I can't blame anyone. Like, I mean, there's guys like Ray Dalio that took out a insurance policy in November 2019 for, was it $1.5 billion, predicting the market would crash in March 2020. And I believe he let that policy lapse for other reasons. He'd be like, he's wealthy. He would be one of the most ridiculously wealthy people in the world now had he kept that policy in place. If operators that are operating on that size and scale can still misinterpret and misread the market, any of us are capable of doing that. So if you're looking for examples of previous war times, there's no systematic wartime, in my opinion, for companies, unless we go way back into history before any of you that are on this call were born. So the closest examples we can look at today is individual levels. So what happened to, Apple in the late 90s? Steve Jobs was consistently a wartime CEO. When times were good, he walked away from the business. When times were bad, he came back into the business and became obsessed and detail-oriented. And really, a lot of his employees learned to love and hate him at the same time. But it was that commitment, that dedication to the company and its core values, and seeing it through one more day that allowed Steve Jobs to keep Apple afloat and eventually transform into the powerful conglomerate that we know today and that most of us use on our cell phones or use as our cell phones. So again, there's no systematic wide thing that we can see on a global economy of the time during war for companies. But we can look to individual companies who went through individual times of war. And we can look to them as an example. But my duty has to be to our business, to our company, to our entire culture. And so that being said, this is also the time that I suspect we're going to find out, who that's part of this team truly believes and lives our core values of impact, as well as understands truly what problems or profits means. I forgot to wear any problems or profits merch, but Peter thankfully did. So It's really going to come down to, do you actually believe this? Do you believe in continuous improvement of yourself, of the business, of our business processes, and ideally just what it means to be a human in general? And then do you understand and appreciate and love the fact that this is a movement, that we're continuously trying to be more than just a business? Are you truly passionate? Do you really care about this as more than just a job to you? Are you willing to be agile? In times like this, agility is going to be so critical to our long-term survival. The willingness to pivot on a dime. In times of peace, companies can focus on things like, what are our 2 top revenue generators, and we're going to do nothing else but focus on these 2 top revenue generators. In times of war, nothing's off the table. Like, nothing's off the table. If it puts money in the bank account today, we do it today. If it puts money in the bank account a year from now, we'll do it a year from now. And that's how we need to really start adapting and just cultivating our mindset towards. And then click, do you truly believe that these are bonds for lives? Are we really a clique? Do we really care about each other? Or was this just a job that kind of felt like it was at a startup, so it was kind of a cool vibe and you got free lunches, but now that maybe the free lunches are over, you're going to peace out? And then finally, transparency. I hope that at least those of you that are going to be with me over this extended period of time can appreciate the level of transparency that I'm providing on this call. I don't want to be Grant Cardone. I don't want to lay off my staff with no notice or no plans and just literally be like, good luck suing me in this time of uncertainty, because you won't even find a lawyer to hire on a retainer. That's not what I want. And so, to be completely frank with everyone, even the degree of transparency I'm showing on this call is more so than what I've shown to some people who I really respect, but I think that their opinions are based on drama and not data. I know there's a lot of people out there that are still treating this like, I can't believe the government's overreacting. At this point in time, it doesn't even matter if the government's overreacting or not. What matters is the reality of the situation. The reality is that businesses are shutting down. The reality is that the U.S. this week will have higher unemployment statistics for week-over-week claims than we have ever seen, possibly 3 times or more worse than we've ever seen. There will be millions, if not tens of millions, and at this point in time, it almost seems naive to not say just tens of millions of people unemployed in the U.S. There's no reason to think that Canada is exceptional to these factors, especially when we're going to see it rolled out to all kinds of different companies and organizations. And a lot of these companies still, they're trying to fight the good fight and stay in business. But if they're not implementing austerity measures, if they're not having a return to frugality as one of their core concepts as a business, they're not going to be here tomorrow. That's just the reality of it. So again, we're probably, just so everyone's clear, I've been struggling for the last 2 weeks. Do I lead with optimism or realism or some sort of combination of both? And that conflict has really forced me to struggle as a leader these last 2 weeks. This point in time, it's definitive, in my opinion, that we've entered from peace into war. So we will also see my content change dramatically. There's going to be a lot of talk about becoming a wartime CEO. There's going to become a lot of talk about how do you survive a financial impact on this degree. And it's important we understand that this is truly a difference in kind versus a difference in degree in relation to what's going on in the economy. When we normally talk about recessions or depressions, it's a difference in degree, which is granular, gradual, where a difference in kind is literally unlike the previous version. It's unlike anything else that came before it. So that being said, I'm sure most of you are just really concerned about what happened next and what happens to me. And so today and tomorrow, I want to do one-on-ones with everyone that's on this call. The way this is going to work is I want you or your manager to reach out, and you guys are going to chat briefly one-on-one and figure out, do you want a one-on-one with just Matt? Do you want a one-on-one with just your manager? Or do you want a one-on-one with Matt and your manager? We are open to any of those, but in the next day to day and a half, we'll be doing all those one-on-one meetings. As well, no one has a crystal ball. So 2 weeks ago, my discussion, had I had an all-hands team meeting like this, would have been dramatically different than the way it looks today. It's going to look way different, I suspect, 2 weeks from now. So again, it's important to understand whatever we're making plans for right now, there's a saying that in times of war, in times of combat, that no plan lasts beyond confrontation or meeting the enemy. So like the moment that we go into battle, everything changes. And that's where being adaptable and agile is going to be so critical, because nothing's going to last that initial contact with the enemy. And that's one of the things too that's important to understand. Like, and a lot of my YouTube commenters clearly don't understand that. So when I make a video on March 13th, it's probably really only valid March 13th, 14th, and maybe the 15th. But realistically, posting a week later about how I'm being naive is naive in of itself, because that's not appreciating how fast the information and facts are evolving here. And the same, right now, 2 weeks from now, we may look back on this call and you guys may think that Matt was the stupidest, silliest person ever because he underreacted or he overreacted. But based upon the data available to me that I have personally reviewed, this is what I believe to be the best course of action. So again, no one's got a crystal ball. Anyone that claims they do is lying to you. So for context, because I think this context is important before I say what's next, I've never taken a salary or taken money from this company, and that's going to continue. I have no intentions of taking a salary. I have no intentions of trying to get the company to pay me back the money I've loaned to it. In fact, this company has only ever cost me money. And I suspect that that's going to continue to be true, and I'm willing to accept that. But also, I know that I need to accept that there's only so much I can allow it to cost me. So what I'm proposing that we do going forward is, right now it's March 23rd. March 23rd to March 29th is going to be business as usual. It's going to be virtual business as usual, but in essence, business as usual. So what we're going to do over this week is I'm going to have different department meetings where we're going to get all the employees together on a virtual call like this, and we're going to do a department-wide meeting where we're going to discuss our future plans. And I could tell you what I'm currently thinking for those department meetings, but they're probably more than 24 hours away from now. And odds are there's going to be more information and more facts available 24 hours from now than there is today. So even me really laying out all my plans doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's the plan for March 23rd to 29th. March 30th to April 5th, I'm going to be asking everyone to partake in a voluntary shutdown. Now, what that looks like, again, we'll discuss one-on-one together as a team, but I'm hoping that we can work together and shut down for 1 week to give us some time to adapt to the new realities of this environment. I also hope that within 2 weeks, we'll have clarity, one, whether any of my tenants are going to pay me any money whatsoever in rent, as well as we hopefully have clarity on whether the government's going to make our business illegal, and that is transacting in real estate during this time. And then finally, it'll give us a little bit of a cushion. It buys us a week where we're not burning, the sort of money that we burn every single week on this business. So that's our current plan. April 6th is to be determined. Now, there is one or two caveats or exceptions to that voluntary shutdown. For the wholesalers, I hope that you guys continue to crush it, because you're the lifeblood of our business, and literally the success and survival of this business is dependent upon you guys going out and doing deals, making transactions happen, problems or profits. Tara, because of a multitude of situations, I'm hoping that we'll be able to continue to have you on that week in some capacity, but we'll have a discussion, you, me, and Adam, or you and Adam, whatever you decide is best. But otherwise, for everyone else, I would appreciate it if you at least consider taking us up on this voluntary shutdown. Again, I'll talk to you one-on-one about it, so I don't want anyone to get off into the weeds on this call about the voluntary shutdown. And then understand that April 6th is to be determined. So I literally don't know what the future holds. Whether that looks like we do part-time, whether that's we try and help assist everyone, transition to whatever's next. Whether that's we decide we're going full tilt and I'll just light all my money on fire. I need a little bit of time to figure that shit out. And so, again, I don't want to lie to you guys and either say everything's going to be fine or the world's falling apart, because right now I'm still trying to straddle that line. But I know that no matter what, we've moved into wartime, that we are fighting for our survival every single day now. And so I want to work with each of you individually, one-on-one, to figure out what's best for you in this situation. And we're going to do our best to make sure that whatever you decide is best for you, that we help accommodate that. I'm probably going to throw out some crazy, quirky proposals to a lot of you, and we'll see whether we can make those work or not. Again, you're going to have to decide what's best for you as an individual. Now, that being said, I'm going to open this up to general comments in a second. But first, what I want to talk about is some personal best practices that we can all be implementing during this time. Again, if you guys decide to just walk out on us, so be it. No hard feelings. I understand everyone needs to protect their own interest. But I still want to give you whatever wisdom or advice or counsel I can at this point. So the first thing that I would recommend, that I suspect most of you are already aware of, it would be smart to always have supplies on hand at this point. So having 1 month's groceries would be very intelligent. It doesn't mean you need to have all your favorite foods, but you should be able to live off of your pantry for a month. In addition, I think it would be very intelligent to have at least 1 month's spending expenses in cash. And you should have that cash hidden somewhere very safe that no one else knows where it is. In addition to that, reducing your personal burn rate. The same way this company is going to have to reduce our company burn rate, you guys should all be reducing your personal burn rates. Any major purchases you were looking at making, I would strongly encourage you to postpone those purchases until a future date. Anywhere where you can find a cheaper short-term substitution, I would consider doing a cheaper short-term substitution. I think it's really important that everyone start consolidating their lives. Reduce your burn rate. On the flip side, and this may feel almost contrary advice, do not pay off any debts that you do not have to pay off in this time. If you've got a line of credit, I would encourage you to draw that line of credit in full and keep that money in a bank account. During these times of extreme volatility and uncertainty, I suspect that we're going to see a significant slowdown in our credit cycle. So realistically, I suspect that a lot of big banks, despite getting a ton of money, a ton of subsidies, a ton of bailouts, will still in fact slow down the credit process and will likely close inactive or unused lines of credit. So again, I would encourage you guys to not pay off any debt you currently don't have to do. I think it's better to hold that cash. In addition, if you've got lines of credit available to you that you haven't fully drawn down, this is likely the time to fully draw it down. If you're paying attention to what's going on in the greater economy, a lot of major corporations over the last 72 hours have been drawing down all their lines of credit. They're making sure that no one can take back what was originally offered to them. And so I recommend and encourage all of you to, at this point in time, probably today, you should take a personal inventory of what's your food situation look like, what's your cash situation look like, and what's your personal financial situation look like. As well, that's going to help inform you in regards to the conversation that you and me are going to have, or you, me, and your manager are going to have. And I really want you guys to know exactly where you're at in this moment in history so that I can do whatever I can to try and help smooth whatever bumpy roads lay ahead for all of us. So, I don't think I've got any real pleasant words of encouragement at this point. What I do have to say, though, is that during these times of extreme volatility, extreme uncertainty, that there are still opportunities out there. There are still people that become billionaires during these times. There are still people that make money. There are still people that succeed. And in fact, the people that build empires during these times of war, during these lean times, it's just so much easier if and when the fat years return. And so I'm not saying that never happens, but I'm saying it would be naive for us to expect that 2 weeks from now that everything goes back to normal. My brain cannot compute how that's a realistic outcome based upon the current data and information available to us. So yeah, I really appreciate and care for all of you guys. If I didn't, I wouldn't have this call. I'd be like every other asshole CEO and just wait until the last moment and then pull the ripcord if and when I needed to. That's what I went through with the pharmaceutical company I worked for back in 2016. We got acquired by another company. It was very apparent to me that they were going to let go of our entire London division because it just didn't make economic sense. And I can remember getting into long-winded debates with our C-level management team, so the CEO, CFO, and the VP of Finance, who also operates as our secretary for the board. I can remember getting into long, heated debates with them about how it was very obvious to me that the writing was on the wall. And those people literally just point blank lied to me because it was in their contracts to lie to me. and because it was in their financial best interest to lie to me. One of the reasons I wanted to start this company and I wanted to create this ecosystem, this culture, this tribe that we have focused on impact is because I never wanted to be in that position again. I never wanted to find myself a victim of something outside of my control. And so, to the best of my ability to control things, I'm going to try and help control them for you guys as well. But I really hope that those of you that are in the financially fortunate positions to be able to work with me, that you'll choose to work with me and try and help smooth this out. We'll figure out a way to make this work for everyone. But it's important to understand pre-COVID-19, post-COVID-19, peacetime versus wartime. And starting today, March 23rd, we are at war. All right, now that I got all the fun, cheery stuff out of the way, does anyone have any concerns?